Hello, today we're going to talk about Linux commands, what they are, why they're useful, and basically everything you need to know. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Linux commands. What is it? Like, why would you use Linux commands in 2023? Why? I mean, weren't commands used back in the 80s? Well, I'll explain to you why it's necessary. Why are they useful? So, one of the main reasons is to troubleshoot. You'll see on threads, you'll see on Linux forums, the easiest, most streamlined way to troubleshoot something is using a Linux command because, for one, it's fast, it's easy, and it's also consistent. It doesn't matter what distro you're on, it's going to be the same, right? It's going to be the same commands, the same configs. I mean, for the majority of the time, there are a few exceptions, but for the majority of the time, that is going to be your go-to thing to do. It's efficient. You can automate tasks. So, for example, you could tell your computer to do something whenever you click a button, or you could tell it to always look for updates at this certain time using systemd. You could create a config. You could create a script. You could run the script whenever you do this certain thing. There's many different reasons um, why you could use commands. You're it's endless what you could do. So let's get right into it. Let's take a look here. And I am running a Linux system right now, so I could show you a few different commands to kind of get you started, kind of get your way into Linux the simplest way possible. So to break this down, we have a few. The ls command, for example, lists the current directory, so we could use that for example. So you could see what I'm doing here. ls. So we can see right now, usually when you open a terminal, it goes into your home directory. It's really easy to change your directory, but for this example, we're listing my current directory. So let's say you want to change your directory. You could do slash, which is basically your C drive on Windows or your root directory on Linux. And this lists all of your different directories in your root file system. That's really useful because it's all organized here. So your OPT, your library, your home, your bin, your boot, everything is organized in its own separate directory, and that basically tells the computer what it is and all the files that are in that directory. It's going to know what it is used for, how the operating system communicates and functions. So if you wanted to go into, let's say, your downloads folder. Now you could do this a few different ways. You could do cd slash home joe downloads. You could do that way, which is really nice and it works. Or you could do this a little bit easier. You can do cd tilde slash downloads. Basically, this little tilde here says your home directory. And it goes by whatever user you're using. So I am user Joe, so it's going to say over user Joe's downloads. And you got it that way. Really easy, really simple. Don't be afraid of it. Another command here, the next on the list, is the df command. So basically this lists your current disk usage. It could be really useful to seeing how much space you got, and so on. So we'll use the df command. I'll show you two different versions of these. You can see it's just a bunch of numbers here, but this actually says where it's mounted, the usage in percentage, the available in bytes, the used in bytes, and the 1K blocks in bytes. So you're like, what does that mean? Like, that's just a bunch of numbers, but it is kind of, it can get confusing. It's exact, but it's confusing, right? You could round it up to the nearest megabyte or gigabyte by using this option. So with any Linux command, you have a different option you could use, and you always go by using the dash. You could use it. It's called option or plugs or switches, depending on who you talk to. That's what they're called. So you could use the df-h, also known as human output. And you can see the megabytes and gigabytes. So it rounds it up, makes it really easy to read. Now we could see, like, let's just say, like, right, this one right here is basically my external drive, and it's mounted on right here. You could see used 4.1 terabytes, available 2.8 terabytes. Now I use this for Flex server, as you can see, and I only have 60% used, which is really nice. Really nice and convenient. Now I could use the clear command. You could see, clears your screen. It's really simple. I find that to use all the time whenever you're using commands. So it's just clears your screen, it makes it easier to read. The next one on the list is the free command. So this basically shows how much RAM that you're using. You can see I am using, I don't even know what that number is, 4,202,132 bytes. Now that can get a bit wordy, so you could round it to, using what I showed earlier, -h, or a human output. So you can see it's being reused quite a bit. I am using 4 gigs, and free is 13 gigs. And that's actually a little higher than usual, and the reason why is I actually have specific caching for different things. Usually the system runs at about 1.5 gigabytes usually. If you're running just a command line interface Linux, it could even be as low as half a megabyte or half a gigabyte, like 500 megabytes or so, or less. So it's really nice. A few ones that aren't listed here that I kind of want to show you anyway. So let's see, we're in the current directory here. There's the touch command. This basically makes files. So let's just say you wanted to make a file called Joe, right? It's an empty file, has nothing in it. Don't get that confused with directory, because directories are different than files. Or you could do, let's say you wanted to call it a certain thing. So right now it's called Joe, but you want to rename it. You could do, you could either remove it, right, with the rm command, or you could use the move command, mv, move Joe to Joe.mv. txt. Now it's a text file, right? So there's a few different editors you could use, very common, built in to Linux systems. I don't recommend it because it's really hard and confusing, is VI. And we could do hello, insert mode, hello world. This is a test. So we can make a file using the VI text editor, or a very common easy one is Nano. And you can see it's the same text editor. And we could exit, save. I could go into depth on how to use Nano and how to use VI. That would take plenty of minutes. So this is just an example of making a file using the touch command. Now let's say we want to remove it. We could do rm, and that removes the file. Now, what if you wanted to create a directory? Well, that would be a different command. It wouldn't be touch, because remember, touch command is for creating files, but to create a directory, we use the mkdir command, or make directory. Really easy to remember. Let's just say you wanted to make the directory Joe stuff. There you go. There's Joe's stuff. And you can go right into the directory using what we talked about earlier. CD Joe's stuff. Oh yeah, we have to do / Joe's stuff, or oh, I see what I did here. I see. Oh, this is a perfect example of you cannot use spaces in Linux because it will not register. You always have to use not use spaces. Oh, hold up. Oh, I see. I didn't use capital. There we go. Now we got it. And so we're in. This is the new directory that we created. A little rusty here, but we got it. And in another easy way to type in commands a lot quicker, we have autofill. Usually it's in bash, and so we could just use cd and say just the J and then press the tab key, and it will autofill for you. That is a must know for sure. It will make life a lot easier. We will not need to use it, so we can always use cd ... and that will just go in the previous directory before the one you're in. So we will remove it, but I wanna show you how you remove a file. So use rm -r and then the directory. And the reason why we do this switch here is the R stands for recursive, so you want to make sure that you are using that when you're removing directories. But be warned, that will remove every single file in that directory, so use it with caution. Now let's say you had a file in a directory here. So let's just I'll show you why it's dangerous to use that. So let's Alright, so we just made the text file. And I'm using Nano Editor. VI Editor works a lot more confusing, so you want to use Nano when you can for beginners. Okay, so let's remove that directory, and it should just remove the directory and the file inside of it. There you go. So, risky? Yes. You want to be careful. For sure. And that concludes the beginning commands just to get around. I could elaborate and talk about how to update things, update packages, but that varies between distro to distro. So just for the beginning, this is a perfect introduction, and I will end it here.